Hello and welcome to Shaw University's celebration of Constitution Day 2020. It is a pleasure having you here with us. My name is Dr. Mark Ferguson, and I am the Assistant Professor of Political Science here at Shaw University. With me today are two of Shaw's finest students, Ms. Shamilia Pinder and Mr. Ian Findley. I should also add that both are political science majors and future world leaders. How are you two doing?
I'm doing fine.
I'm well, really just excited the weekend is approaching.
Yes, the week. Well, before that, we have to celebrate one of the most important documents, right? The Constitution. But yes, so why don't you two briefly tell the audience a little bit about yourselves, your majors, what you want to do, and then anything else you feel like that's relevant. Starting first with you, Ms. Pinder.
My name is Shamilia Pinder. I am an international student from the Bahamas. I am also a sophomore studying political science. I am currently serving as the Vice President of External Affairs for the Student Government Association, and I am also a member of Platinum Sound Marching Band and Shaw University's Concert Band.
Yay. Okay, Mr. Findley, what would you like to add?
My name is Ian Findley. I have the pleasure of serving the student body as the 2020-2021 student body president. I'm a political science major, a senior, ready to graduate in May 2021 with some hopes to attend law school in the spring semester of 2021.
Okay, that's great. I have no doubt that both of you are going to be very successful, whatever career path you decide to take, particularly in law or if you decide to go academic. But before we go further, so let me briefly discuss the origins of Constitution Day. Constitution Day was officially established by Congress in 2004. Its purpose is to recognize the historical importance of the adoption and signing of the Constitution on September the 17th, 1787. The celebration of Constitution Day took many forms, led by groups like the Sons of the American Revolution, celebrated by individual states and local communities, and was often called Citizenship Day. We often take for granted that the Constitution is a finished document, meaning we do not have to construct a new government from the ground up. The adoption of the Constitution was not always a guarantee in 1787. In reality, there were many debates and issues that the delegates had to resolve. Those at the Constitutional Convention recognized that the then governing structures under the Articles of Confederation, the first US form of government, needed to be at a minimum reformed or, using modern language, completely reimagined. But how? Under the Articles, the states were basically independent countries in a very weak union with an even weaker national government. How do you balance the interests of states' independence, while creating a stronger union? For the framers, their approach to this problem was a novel solution: federalism. The national government would be granted political authority that would ensure the cohesion of the newly independent country, while the states still are able to exercise political control in other areas. However, that was just one issue that had to be resolved. The other pressing issue that the framers faced, and it was a very serious threat to the overall success of the convention, was the strong disagreement between the large and small populated states and their subsequent representation in Congress. Large populated states naturally wanted representation to be based on a state's population. The larger your population, the larger your representation. This was called the Virginia Plan. Small populated states objected and wanted equal representation as it was under the Articles. They put forth a plan called the New Jersey Plan. Eventually, the dispute between the states was resolved through the Connecticut Compromise. In history books, it's also called the Great Compromise of 1787 or the Sherman Compromise. This compromise retained elements of both the Virginia and New Jersey plans. The Congress, the legislative body, would be a bicameral body with representation in the House of Representatives based on a state's population size. And then each state will be given equal representation in the Senate. Not only were these issues something to consider, we should also consider the impact the founding principles as found in the Constitution has had on our country. For instance, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg once observed that as part of the founding principles of the Constitution can be found a concept that is so simple today, but one that was revolutionary over 230 years ago. We the people. Think about that concept. Government begins and functions with the consent of we the people. Additionally, Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy once opined that among these revolutionary principles is the idea that persons in every generation can invoke the Constitution's principles in their own search for greater freedom. In other words, the Constitution provides the basis for not only how we govern, but also for the pursuit and promotion of one's civil rights and liberties. Because of the Constitution and its principles, many of us may not realize that the impact it has had not only on the United States, but those same principles as established by the Constitution have also influenced the constitutions of countries like Germany, Japan, Canada, Australia, and Nigeria, just to name a few. Its legacy is priceless. Ms. Pinder, Mr. Findley, is there anything you would like to add? Starting with you, Ms. Pinder.
I want to say that I love the use of language in the Constitution. The word choice ensures safety, freedom, and equality for all of its citizens. I couldn't choose just one favorite amendment, so I narrowed my list down to 3.
Okay.
My first one is the 9th Amendment, which states that the Constitution does not list all of the rights. This means that U.S. citizens are not limited to the rights in the Constitution. My second favorite is the 13th Amendment. This amendment freed slaves.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we all should have the right to control our own lives as humans.
Right.
This freed African Americans and gave them the opportunity to fight for their rights to education and other deserving rights. My last favorite amendment, of course, is the 19th Amendment, which allows women to vote. As a woman, we always have to fight for what we want. Even after the 19th Amendment, we still had to fight to sit on juries, to become lawyers and politicians. We're often ignored, or not heard because of our emotions and feelings. This amendment gave us the opportunity for our voices to be heard and have an input in the country.
Those are really great amendments that you chose. And I really love how you also approached it in your own terms, in your own words. So thank you very much for your input. Is there anything else you would like to add before we go further, or?
No, sir.
Okay. What about you, Mr. Findley? What do you think?
I completely agree with Ms. Pinder's analysis of, her favorite amendments to the Constitution. I want to, reiterate the point that you made that, of course, the American Constitution has really provided a blueprint for most democracies around the world. When you look at things like the Bill of Rights, almost every country that claims to be a true democratic nation has their version of the Bill of Rights. No country in the world that claims to be a democracy can limit their citizens to freedom, not being free of religion, freedom of speech, press, peaceable assembly. And I also want to, show the importance that even through the over 230 years of being an independent country, those rights are still very much so upheld and very much so, implemented by those persons of administrative authority. You look at all of the protests that were happening in recent times, and even though they happened during a pandemic, most of the cities had, stay-at-home orders, but they could not limit the citizens from their right to peaceable assembly, regardless of what was going on. So looking at all of those things, taking into account the influence that America constantly plays on the world in terms of providing a blueprint for democracy, I think that the Constitution is a great document and should always be celebrated.
Great. That's a really great explanation. I like how you tied all that in together. Both of you did really well. But do you have like any specific amendment that you would like to talk about, like Ms. Pinder did, or you just like to talk about the overall impact of its of the U.S. Constitution?
Yes, sir. Well, of course, the First Amendment, like I mentioned, which reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. So the First Amendment, right, of course, I know it's the first and it's kind of cliche to pick it as my favorite, but that really establishes the basis of what a democracy is. Like you said, we the people. And also I would like to mention the 22nd Amendment, which particularly deals with presidential term limits. And we know that that amendment came about when FDR went in for his fourth term, or I think he tried to be elected for his fourth term. But that amendment also really provides another, I don't know what to call it, but another building block on what democracy is. You shouldn't have a leader or a president going into, being a tyranny or being a tyrant and being a dictator and staying in office for so many terms, because then you would go back to that colonialism. And we know that that's something that the framers definitely didn't want. And we thought as though George Washington, of course, established that precedent, but of course it was never officially an amendment until, made possible by the 22nd Amendment. Yeah,
and to play off your point, FDR, President Roosevelt, was elected 4 times, but he died early in his beginning of his 4th term. So then he was succeeded by his vice president, Harry Truman, who completed the rest of World War II and the rest of President Roosevelt's term in office. But yes, as a result, those arguments that you made about limiting the number of terms the president can serve were also very much a concern for the framers of the Constitution, that too much power concentrated into one hand, one institution should be avoided. And one way to do that, as you mentioned, is placing a term limit on the president. Anything else? The two would you like to add? Like to share your thoughts on?
I also sorry to
no, please.
But I also like to appreciate that. Of course, it is a moving document. We know that things can change, and we know that the conversation has always been around maybe having term limits for our congressmen and those in the House of Representatives and those in the Senate. So maybe once that conversation is revisited in a more serious manner, they can look at the success of having presidents who can only serve 2 terms, and making sure that our congressmen don't become stagnant and complacent in their positions, and to know that, okay, I need to get this done now. So
yeah, good. It's a good point. Good point. Ms. Pinder, what do you think?
I want to go off of what Ian said. I think that that's what's exciting about the Constitution, the fact that it can continuously change. We can make those amendments to it as time progresses. And that's really another thing that I like about the Constitution. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay. Well, no, there's actually great points that each of you made. The points about the Constitution, the different amendments, and its ability to be amended, to change is I think one of the enduring features of this document that's lasted for 230 years. And it could be slow to change, but it can change, and it provides that stability, but also provide that hope for things to be better in the future, such as granting the right to vote to 18-year-olds. That didn't come about to the 1970s. So that those are really good points that both of you make. So I guess again, I'm going to thank you for your thoughts here. Those are really good thoughts. And to your point, I think this is a great time to transition to an interview of President Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States, and listen to his thoughts on the Constitution. So at this point, what I'm going to do is going to switch screens. I'm going to head over to screen here regarding, yes, right here, this screen here regarding the president's interview. And we're going to listen to it as it's about a 4.5-minute video of President Obama responding to Scholastic News kid reporters Jacob Schroeder and Topanga Asina back in 2011. But I think what's important is that his words really reflect much of what Americans believe in terms of the role of the Constitution, its impact, and its enduring feature as it is. So let me go ahead and start this.
Mr. President, kids across America learn about the Constitution every September 17th. Why is the Constitution important to kids today?
Well, I'm really excited about Constitution Day because, as some of you know, I am a lawyer, but I also taught constitutional law at the University of Chicago. And it is an amazing document. When you think about our country, unlike most countries, we're not all of the same race or the same religion. We don't all come from the same places. Many of us are immigrants. But what holds us all together is a belief in certain ideals and certain values. And the Constitution really is what sets us apart by saying that every single person is treated with respect, every single individual has certain rights, and that the government has to follow certain rules in how it interacts with its citizens. And so it sets out a model not only for our democracy, but also for how each of us have certain individual freedoms and certain rights that can't be broken. So, you know, the best example is freedom of speech, which, since you guys are reporters, you have to be concerned about. It's because of our Constitution that newspapers and radio and television reporters are able to find out what's happening. They can ask questions of their elected officials. They can write criticisms about what officials are doing. And in a lot of countries that's not true, but our Constitution says that's a right that is important to us. And so it protects our ability to all live together as part of a single democracy.
The Constitution is more than 220 years old. Why is it still cool in 2011?
Well, I think it's very cool to have a document that, even though it was written 220 years ago, still applies today, because the founders were trying to solve a lot of problems that all human societies have to deal with. You know, we all need a government to make sure that we can live together in an orderly fashion, but we don't want the government to be so oppressive and the people in power to be able to just tell us what to do across the board. Instead, we have a system where we, the people, are able to tell the government what we think is best. And if it weren't for the Constitution, a lot of the things that we take for granted, you know, our ability to speak our minds, our ability to worship any religion that we want, our ability to make sure that if somebody accuses us of a crime, that we're able to defend ourselves in a court of law and before a jury of our peers. If it weren't for our Constitution, all those basic rights that we take for granted wouldn't be around. So I think that's pretty cool, because there are a lot of societies that don't have those protections, and people there live very difficult lives and are constantly scared, thinking that if they don't agree with somebody in the government, that somehow they're going to be punished.
If you could sit down for a conversation with one of the founding fathers, which one would it be?
Well, that's a pretty good question. I've always thought that Benjamin Franklin would be a really interesting guy to talk to, because not only was he a great politician and somebody who helped to organize our country, but he was also a great scientist. He was also a good businessman. they say that he was a really funny guy. He was a good writer. So he just had a lot of different interests that I think would make him somebody that I would really enjoy having dinner with.
Okay, welcome back. So what are some of your thoughts about President Obama's points about the Constitution? You have any comments, some ideas that you would like to opine about, some expand on President Obama's thoughts? Let's start with you, Mr. Findley.
Well, some things that really stood out to me with President Obama said was, him saying that, of course, with the First Amendment rights, yes, it's a benefit to the citizens, but it's also a benefit to the society on a whole because we're holding government officials accountable. You know what I mean? Government officials are, I wouldn't say that they're afraid of doing the wrong thing, but they know that they're going to get backlash. They're going to get criticized if something was to go wrong. So that thought is always in the back of their head so that they know that, it's not about how many people serve you. It's about how many people you serve. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then also with him mentioning the term single democracy, we know that it was a point in America's history when the Confederacy wanted to break away. And of course, this is something that the Constitution does not allow, does not support. We want an equal union. We want to make sure that all states are, co-equal branches in acting for the greater good of America. So,
yeah, good points. Very good points. What about you, Ms. Pinder? What do you think?
Before I get started, I want to say that I really loved and enjoyed this video with Barack Obama, with President Obama and the two reporters. But firstly, I love that he simplified the purpose of the Constitution. Everyone is treated with respect and has rights, and that's what the Constitution says. The government also has to follow the Constitution, which means that it is not only one-sided, but it's for everyone. Secondly, I love that there was emphasis on how relevant the Constitution still is today. I mean, this Constitution, like they said in the video, has been written 2 centuries ago.
Yeah.
And yet it is still so useful for us in the 21st century. Finally, President Obama emphasized that we often take our rights for granted that are written in the Constitution. We don't realize that many countries today don't have the right to speak, the right to worship freely, the right to just assemble as a whole. So oftentimes we just need to look back into the Constitution and remember that we shouldn't take this for granted.
Those are really excellent points that you make, Ms. Pinder. Excellent points too, Mr. Findley. I think what I was struck by your point, Ms. Pinder, about don't lose those rights, and that kind of made me think about the importance of registering and actually going to go vote. Do either one of you two want to comment a little bit about registering to vote and going to go vote as part of not losing your voice?
Well, I think today, you mentioned, of course, I believe it's the 26th Amendment, no, the 23rd Amendment that gave 18-year-olds the right to vote.
Right.
So I feel like in today's day and age when there's so much uncertainty, what we do know that is certain is that November 3rd or election day is approaching. So we want citizens to go out and register to vote because this is something, especially for millennials and today's college students, we want to make sure that they know this is something that was specifically written in the Constitution for you. Like, we know that a lot of people in today's day and age like when things are personalized for them. You like when, there's a personalized check on your shirt or something like that. And if you look at that amendment, you could say that this was like, whoever wrote this, they had me in mind. So I feel like if everyone was to review the Constitution and really pick out amendments and figure out, okay, this is, for Shamilia, she spoke about the women's right to vote. And of course, she could pick that out and say that this is something that they had me in mind. You know what I mean? So I feel like if everyone looks at that amendment, know the importance that it took for the founding fathers and those who proposed those amendments to say that we're going to do this with this person in mind, they wouldn't take for granted going out to register to vote, something so simple and trivial. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah, those excellent points. Excellent point. What about you, Ms. Pinder? What do you think about registering and going to go vote?
At this time, I just want to challenge everyone listening or watching to not only register to vote, but to actually vote, whether it's by filling out your absentee ballot request form and mailing in your ballot, or even if it's actually going to the poll on November 3rd. Personally, I don't think that you should register to vote and not vote. It's good to register and vote, but my emphasis for you is register to vote so that you are able to vote. It's important for you to use your rights because they took the time out in the Constitution to write that right as well as amend it for us. And I also want to take this time to tell you all to don't wait until November 3rd to send in your mail-in ballot. Send it before the end of October. And also I want to announce that if you need help registering to vote, the Student Government Association and other on-campus organizations will be on the yard September 22nd, which is National Voter Registration Day, to help you register to vote.
Right. So guys watching this, keep that in mind. Ms. Pinder, they're going to be there to help you to get registered to go vote. And as Mr. Findley and Ms. Pinder pointed out, don't lose your voice. This is the best way for us to know that what you want. So why give up your voice and not vote? Why go through, as Ms. Pinder pointed out, register and not actually go do the voting aspect to that? So very great points. I really appreciate the in-depth aspect of how you two place the importance of registering and actually going to go vote. Before we go further, I'd like to talk a little bit with you guys who are watching this recording through Shaw University's social media platforms and everything. Over the course of the past few days, you may have noticed that Shaw University had on their social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, I think as well. You may have noticed that for every day of this week, Shaw issued a question of the day. And the question of the day is basically history facts on the Constitution. I want to take this time right now to review the questions and the responses with you that have been issued through the social media platforms that Shaw have. So the first question that appeared was, what controversy emerged between the large populated states and small populated states, and how was this resolved? And as you recall that we discussed that earlier in this program, that really we're talking about representation between the big states, small states, and should we use the Virginia plan or the New Jersey plan? And they ultimately fell on the Connecticut Compromise. And additionally, you may not notice that, but part of it also is the Electoral College. Despite its criticisms, many have also pointed out that the Electoral College, which requires that candidates not just win the most populated parts of the country, but also it requires the candidates to obtain a more national support. So it just wouldn't be the heavily populated states of California or the West Coast and the heavily populated states in the East Coast. That would leave everybody in the middle, according to some academics, that would leave basically everybody in the middle out of the picture. The second question today, why is Constitution Day observed annually on September the 17th? And we discussed that earlier as well. This is basically, in basic terms, this is September 17th is the day that the Constitution was adopted and signed by the individual delegates to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. All right, third question of the day, do you know the preamble of the Constitution by heart? And I remember in not only in high school, but also the elementary schools, that's kind of one of the things that our history teachers made us learn and stuff like that. It's actually a pretty nice preamble. The preamble sets kind of the how this country should function in terms of going forward and thinking about the moral character of this country, such as we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. And you notice that part that Justice Ginsburg talked about, we the people. And that is even back in 1787, that is a revolutionary concept. We the people established this. The next question of the day, do you know that the U.S. Constitution's concepts of rights, liberties, and structure of government went on to inspire other countries to adopt constitutions with these same concepts, these same principles? You can name 2 democratic government countries. We already talked about a few of them already during this program. Germany, of course, with the 1948 Grundgesetz, that's the basic law. The 1947-48 MacArthur Constitution of Japan. And Australia has adopted it as well. Canada has adopted principles from the US Constitution, as well as Nigeria. And lastly, and this is kind of a more you type of approach. It's, what do you think, over the course of the 230 years, which amendment do you think you like the most? What's most impressive to you? That's kind of, and this is obviously, from your standpoint, what you think. So I'm sure there's not a question that you can give that would be an incorrect question. All right, so before we go further, so this brings us to the end of our program. However, before we conclude, Ms. Pinder, Mr. Findley, do you have any other concluding thoughts on the Constitution? So let's start with you, Ms. Pinder.
As we come to a close, I just want to encourage everyone that is watching to read the Constitution, learn the Constitution, try and understand the Constitution. It's the rule of all rules in America, so I definitely think that it's something you should look at and try to learn something from.
Great, thank you. Mr. Findley.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Ms. Pinder said, you don't know until you read about it unless you ask someone more educated than yourself. You don't want to be put in a situation where someone is telling you something that is actually, constitutionally incorrect. So you always want to make sure that you're as educated as possible for any situation as possible. And in reading this document, it will teach you how to read any rules and policies and procedures from your work life, from your office space, even knowing your Miranda rights. So knowing those things would just help you have a better life, period.
Great. Well, thank you both for your input. I also want to reiterate what we just talked about a few minutes ago is go register to vote. And when you do register, go vote. Don't waste your opportunity. Don't lose your voice. Go vote. So, but before we conclude our celebration of Constitution Day 2020 here at Shaw University, if you're interested in learning more facts about the Constitution, I invite you to go visit constitutionfacts.com. There you'll find excellent information on the Constitution. You may also test your knowledge in the What's Your Constitution IQ quiz. Additionally, as noted earlier, this is an election year. And we want to encourage, again, every eligible citizen to go register to vote and actually go vote. Your vote is your voice. Don't lose your voice. You can find more information about registration and voting at vote.org. And additionally, as Ms. Pinder pointed out, they will be on September 22nd, helping you to go register to vote. So please take Ms. Pinder up on her offer to help you get registered to vote so that you can vote in this coming election. At vote.org, you will find invaluable information about your state, how to get registered, and how to vote. So if you're going to vote by mail, you need to know that process as well. That information will be there. All right, so one last time, Ms. Pinder, Mr. Findley, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share? Start with Mr. Findley.
I hope everyone enjoys this Constitution Day and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Ms. Pinder?
I guess the same. I really enjoyed it. I want to express my gratitude to you, Dr. Ferguson, for inviting me, and that's all.
Thank you both once again. With that being said, I want to personally thank everyone who worked so hard to make this program possible. As you can see on your screen, we want to thank our esteemed president, Dr. Paulette Diller, our provost, Dr. Renata Dusenberry, our dean, Dr. Valerie Johnson, Professor McNeil, our department chair here at Social Work, Justice, and so on, Mr. Jeffrey Williamson and Mr. Jeff Tibbett. Again, special thanks to the SGA president, Mr. Ian Findley, and Ms. Pinder as well for the excellent job that you guys have done putting this together and volunteering to actually do this. I know it took a lot of time out of your day, what you got going on in terms of education and so on. So I appreciate you taking this time with us. So without you, this would not have been possible. So again, thank you. Lastly, when commenting and responding to this program, please use Shaw's social media identifiers, hashtag Constitution Day, hashtag Shaw University, hashtag College Life, hashtag Black College, hashtag Shaw U Pride. So thank you for joining us for Shaw's celebration of Constitution Day 2020. We hope this program has been entertaining and informative. We will see you next year. Take care. Bye.